Today we're going to be looking at Descartes' famous quote, "I think, therefore I am," or in the original Latin, Cogito ergo sum. In the course of this video, I'm going to try to present the arguments here in as balanced and equal a way as I can, in order to, for everyone, serve the goal of finding knowledge. This is going to be part 1, where we're going to take a look at Descartes' descent into skepticism. One more quick caution before we get started. This is a basic introduction to the Cogito. If you want to learn more, do some reading. Read up on Meditations on First Philosophy by René Descartes. Or take a look at some secondary material, Descartes and Skepticism by Charles Larmor. There's a lot of information out there on this subject. It shouldn't be hard to find some. With that out of the way, let's get started. Now, what we're going to be looking into is Descartes' process of questioning knowledge. Now, Descartes, with his lovely curls, was a foundationalist. This means that while he believed that some beliefs must be justified by other beliefs, there are also some beliefs that are basic and require no justification at all. Let's take a look at what those basic beliefs might look like. So, let's say you have some belief A, which in turn is justified by some other belief, B, which in turn is justified by C, and so on and so forth, until eventually you get down to some belief, I, and this belief is in fact justified by itself. It's a self-justifying, basic belief. This is what Descartes is searching for. Now, these basic beliefs are going to have several properties. They're going to be indubitable. We cannot doubt them. They must be true. They'd be pretty bad if they were false. We can have no error in our process for getting to them. These beliefs have to be self-justified, and of course, they must be infallible. In order to find these beliefs, Descartes is going to do his best to launch the most powerful skeptical arguments he has at his disposal, and create a very high bar for knowledge. The first target Descartes has in his search for basic beliefs is going to be our beliefs about sense perception. These are beliefs about things that we see, smell, touch, hear, or taste. Now, Descartes, with his flowing locks, is going to be something of a Goldie-cart in his arguments, in the sense that he's going to present an argument that's too weak, an argument that's too strong, and finally an argument that's just right for our skeptical purposes, in search of his skeptical porridge, if you will. First, let's take a look at the argument that's too weak. This is the idea that our sense perception might be flawed in the same way we're flawed when we look at optical illusions. At first, I might see those two lines and think that one is longer than the other, but upon measuring them realize that they're the same length, and that I was deceived by the arrows on either end. This is a little too weak, because it only challenges one of our perceptions, our eyes, and also because you can usually see through such illusions fairly quickly, and it's not hard to measure and discover the solution. So that's a little too weak. Next, Descartes presents an argument that's a little too strong. This is the thought that maybe I was a madman, and I said things like, "The purple dogs can't melt the breath. I have no rationality at all, no sense about me." Well, sure, this would mean my sense perceptions are probably off, but it seems a little strong, because there'd be no point in which I would know that I was a madman or be able to look back, and might not be terribly convincing to someone who didn't think they were a madman. So, where we need to go is to a third route, the path that is just right, and this is an argument dealing with the idea that you might be dreaming. When you're in a dream, you don't know you're in a dream, and all of your senses seem to be functioning perfectly well, when, upon later, you realize that they weren't. You might think there was a dog in front of you, but later realize it was just your pillow. It is stronger than the optical illusions because it affects all your senses, and in that moment it's completely convincing. But it's weaker than the madman because at a later point you will realize, of course, you were only dreaming. With this out of the way, Descartes believes he's dealt with the idea of sense perception and moves on. Now Descartes is going to turn his skeptical gaze to our faculties of reason and rationality. These are things that help us do math, do logic, and aren't really affected by the senses. First, we're going to see the argument It's too weak, as we did before. This, in fact, is going to be our argument for before, about dreams. Even in a dream, 3 plus 2 equals 5. So while that can be strong enough to deal with sense perception, it won't help us when dealing with reason. Next, we'll take a look at something that's a little too strong. What if God were to intervene and mess with our ability to reason? Well, God's powerful enough to trick us. But Descartes' God, at least, is a good God, and he wouldn't go and systematically deceive us. Therefore, we need something that's in between. Just right. We have some kind of evil deceiver, a very powerful being, not as powerful as God, but powerful enough to systematically deceive us in everything that we do. Something that, when I try to add 2 and 3, would step into my reason and mess me up to make me think it was 100 or a pancake. In conclusion of the first meditation, we started off looking for something that we cannot doubt on which to base all of our knowledge. We can doubt our sense perceptions. We might be dreaming. We can doubt our reason. We might be deceived. But to give a preview of what's to come, can we doubt that we are doubting? To finish, I'll leave you with a quote from Descartes that summarizes his project. Archimedes, that he might transport the entire globe from the place it occupied to another, demanded only a point that was firm and immovable. So also I shall be entitled to entertain the highest expectations if I am fortunate enough to discover only one thing that is certain and indubitable. Watch more videos like this on Carneades.org. Stay skeptical, everybody.